Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me over on X at Nicholas M. Craig. Of course, our website, infectionpodcast.com. I couldn't possibly do this alone. Joining me, as always, Brian with an I, Aldridge. Brian, what's going on, my friend?
Not much, just living the dream. So if you want to find me, of course, you can find me on X at Boise Computer, or of course, at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, wherever else, any other places. So, all right. Do you want to follow up a little bit on our lead last week, or do you have a preference?
Yeah, I think I do. So the 10th, which was Friday, the new Call of Duty released. We talked a little bit about this last week. I watched, I will admit, I spent probably 8 hours, now probably close to 11 to 12 hours yesterday watching football on network television. Okay. And it seemed like every commercial break, Modern Warfare ad, which is pretty typical around this time of year, right? They blitz hard. You got football. It's kind of, there's a crossover. There's a swath of the audience that is the Call of Duty audience as well. And on last week's episode of 459, we talked about the abysmal reviews in terms of the early access people that had copies of it. IGN take their reviews for what it's worth. The campaign was a 3 out of 10. Rumors that this game was essentially supposed to be DLC, but because it didn't get done fast enough, they're like, oh, well, let's just kind of repackage it as a full game. And we're learning this week that the Modern Warfare 3 studio is pushing back on the fact that the campaign was cobbled together and scraped together in 16 months. They're saying this is, quote, simply not true, even though all indications indicate, I know that's repetitive, but all indications indicate that this was supposed to be a large DLC pack for the last COD. That never came to fruition, and now we've got this new game with a relatively short campaign, like under sub 4 hour campaign. It uses the old launcher still, and a lot of folks are like, you're just kind of reskinning what should have been DLC, which, by the way, is not the first time we've seen a game take what was supposed to be an expansion and release it as a new game. And that's kind of what's going on. As I talked about in great detail last week, have been a COD player for well over a decade. And this one is just not doing it. Now you look at the Steam numbers, take those for what they're worth, but looking at steamdb.info today, you've got 134,000 people playing right now. This 12-month peak is kind of garbage because, again, it all uses the same launcher. So you kind of look at just these stats as a whole with current players, and there's definitely well, let's see what happened. Looks like they redid their website. They used to have a chart where you could see like day by day what people were. Well, I guess this is.
You can mouse over it.
This is players or owners?
Players. Yeah, it says players.
Okay. Yeah, they changed the graph here. So you saw, of course, a peak on the 10th when it launched, and it's been up there. But it isn't, you look at a game that had 50 to 60,000 people before, you added about 110,000 or so. For a new launch, Brian, I would argue that that's maybe not the greatest number in the world. I think there's a lot of apathy with this new COD, and it's not just this one. It's been a trend for, as a fan, I say, unfortunately, quite some time.
Yeah, well, and here's a quote from the studio head of Sledgehammer Games, and he says, "We're incredibly proud of Modern Warfare 3, both the full game experience at launch and the upcoming year of content that we have planned for the community. On behalf of the extremely talented team across Sledgehammer Games and our partner studios with whom we've collaborated on development, this has been a labor of love to lead the first ever back-to-back sequel in Call of Duty. We cannot wait to see our community reactions to all the entire game has to offer across campaign, multiplayer, and zombies. From the start of development, we have all had been laser focused on creating the next groundbreaking Call of Duty game. Long before we wrapped up our previous game, we heard loud and clear from fans about the desire to stay and play together for longer within the same series, and that's what we've delivered. The first true sequel in franchise history is also why we added features like carry forward for the first time to honor the investment our players have made in the Modern Warfare series. We're proud to be the team to lead the way on Modern Warfare 3. We have worked hard to deliver on this vision, which has been years in the making. Anything said to the contrary is simply not true. This is our game, and we cannot wait to play it online with all of you. And so this carry forward, is that pretty much carrying forward your progress, your levels? Like,
I'm going to admit, I don't know, but I want to go back.
2?
But I want to go back to I want to go back to something at the beginning of the statement. This has been a labor of to lead the first ever back-to-back sequel, which lines up exactly with the criticism and the concern that, hey, this was just supposed to be a DLC. There are 3 studios that work on Call of Duty: Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer. And this is the first time that the same studio has been back-to-back on a game. And Brian, that lends itself to exactly the criticism. The reason this is the first ever back-to-back is that this was just supposed to be an expansion that didn't come to fruition. Because this has never happened.
Well,
it's always been another studio. That's the whole reason that there's 3 studios, because it takes more than, you release a game November 10th, you have to support it. You can't start development of the next one the same day. You have to support your game. Typically in Call of Duty, your most active time is the first, let's call it like 2 to 4 months, right? That's when you get your peak player count. The game's always released in November, so you get your, what we used to call the Christmas noobs. Everybody gets the new game. They play it through January, February, March, and then you start seeing a slow trickle downward. No studio can develop a full game in that period of time. That's why there's 3 studios. This is the first time that's never happened. So it lends exactly to the criticism.
Well, and I'm reading here about what they mean by carry forward.
Okay, yeah.
And that says that the content currently available to players in Modern Warfare 2 and the current version of Call of Duty Warzone, such as weapons and cosmetic content, including bundles, operators, and other rewards and unlocks from the game, are accessible in the new version. So that just still kind of tells me that this was meant to be a DLC, and it's not drastically enough different to where all this old stuff still works. It's like the same code base.
So
I mean, that kind of what it tells me, that they were easily able to do this because it's not drastically different.
Well, it's not drastically different. It's the same studio. And on top of that, you look at a game like WoW, which is a Blizzard property. There's only one WoW game. Now, there's a gazillion expansions, right? And there's been a gazillion expansions for the last 20 plus years. But it's one game. And we've seen with games like Fortnite, right? There's not a Fortnite 2 or 3 or 4 or 8. There's just Fortnite. And they make revisions, they add on, they remove, they add, they remove, they add again. That's just what they do. It's these games that live in perpetuity. Call of Duty's never had that. You get a game, you play it pretty solid for maybe 6 or 7 months. Then you drop off for a few months in the summer, you get into the fall, and bam, new Call of Duty, mid, early, late November, depending on the year. We're on to the next one, right? And then the old audience base is essentially gone. I mean, it's non-existent. Anybody that's a serious FPS player or COD player moves on to the new franchise. That's worked in the past. It's been the case since the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox. That's changed though, Brian. This concept of a new game every 12 months has changed. It's dramatically different from what it was in 2007 and 8, 9, 10, 12. We're 10 years past that at this point, and there is some legitimacy to the idea that you need a I don't even know what you call it. I say a launcher, but that's not accurate. You need a base game that you add new things onto, and it seems to me, based on what we're seeing here,
expansions are really maps and maybe maybe looks and things like that you're bringing
which
in.
is all COD is anyway. It's all cosmetic. I mean, the
Yeah.
gameplay style has essentially been the same. Now, I know the Call of Duty purists would say the Infinity Ward games play this way, the Treyarch games play this way, the Sledgehammer games play this way. I get all of that. I'm there. I've played literally every single one of these games since I wasn't even allowed to buy them without having a parent or a grandparent go to GameStop and purchase them for me. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand. But that is a very antiquated video game model. And I think this kind of sets the stage for a longer term. Brian, there's going to be a Call of Duty, and every year there's going to be, or every 16 months or 15 months or 18 months, there's going to be an expansion. And that's the next Call of Duty. But instead of it being Modern Warfare this and Black Ops 8 and Modern Warfare this, it's going to all be in that same launcher with new maps and new weapons and all of these things. I don't think folks would be upset with that. I think they're upset with the fact that they were charged $69.99 for essentially a DLC pack. I think that's what they're frustrated by. And there is really I don't think there's a whole lot of enthusiasm for this game. I mean, even the Steam numbers. You're talking about a game that released 3 days ago. Call of Duty, one of the most popular, well-known, successful, profitable video game franchises that has ever existed. And they've got 134,000 players. They're being beat by Counter-Strike, Dota, them, Baldur's Gate, Apex Legends, TF2.
Yeah.
That should be at the top of the list.
Yep.
Or at least close to it. Now, I get Counter-Strike's got 484,000 people playing right now. That's Counter-Strike's a whole different game. But the fact that you don't have 150,000 concurrent players 3 days after the launch, it says something to me.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do going forward. And I think some of those suggestions of figuring out, do we need to switch to more of an episodic, we're really selling you levels and maybe the first 6 months to a year of access to levels, right? I mean, that to me makes more sense. And then you're turning around and then bundling those in after the next expansion to the base so that, everybody you got to figure out something so that, first of all, I talked about this last week, splitting your player base is a huge problem because there's some people still playing on previous versions that could be playing this or could be at least be put into the map rotations so that you have a high number of players to pick from so you can make the scaling of abilities good. Because with the small player base, the problem is you're having to mix various levels of player ability and you can't, it's everybody playing together. I don't remember on this, they have the different tiers, as far as hardcore or whatever. I don't think they really split you as much by your ability level, but
sure.
You're not going to be filling lobbies as fast. You're going to have to wait. And there's going to be people that are going to be forced. If there's not enough people to fill the lobbies on hardcore, the people that are really good are going to come down and then slaughter people. So, it's just, I think it needs to have a lot of players to have that balance to make it feel like a good COD.
And let's be clear, it does have a lot of players, but it doesn't have the player base that it did, right? You compare these launch to launch. It's really hard to, you can't compare this to Apex. You can't compare it to CSGO or Dota. Call of Duty is a different animal. I mean, there are people, and I guess, Brian, I kind of fall into this same category. There are people, not exclusively, but close to it. It's all they play. They buy one new video game a year. And that new video game is Call of Duty. That's what they buy. That is their extent of being a gamer. That's it.
Well, and there's certain games like that. WoW's one of those. There's people that just play WoW. There's people that just play RuneScape. This is one of those games where that's one of those games that when people, you go up to them and say, well, what games do you play?
COD.
I play COD.
Yeah.
And that's
I play COD. Yeah. Same thing with the Counter-Strike players. What do you play? I play CS.
Yeah.
I play Counter-Strike. That's it.
Yeah. And that's all they do all the time. They're not gamers in the sense of what we think of gamers.
Now, I will note the Steam player count might not be the most accurate number in the world because, of course, I own I would have purchased this game on battle.net, right? Because that's where I've got all of my COD friends. And so this number is not necessarily the most accurate in the world. The PC player is definitely higher than 135 because of all the people playing on battle.net. But either way, the reaction, and, you know, COD's been under fire forever now. It's not really a new thing. But the reaction to this one, I think, has been the most brutal reaction to a COD I've ever seen in modern times.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been people that have complained about, I mean, like World War II, they complained about that.
Sure.
But it wasn't this. It wasn't like, you know, they didn't put, this isn't its own real game. They just didn't like maybe the levels, they didn't like the weapons that were in there, but they still considered it a COD game. They just didn't like how they did it. This one, like they're saying this isn't even a full game you're giving us. So that is a little bit different. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the tweets. They seem to have a lot of their ambassadors replying to that tweet from the Sledgehammer president, whatever statement you read. A lot of blue check marks. This is the best game ever made, which is always a little bit sus.
About?
But as you scroll down and get past the blue check mark, which I have a blue check mark, I'm not discounting that. But when you get past those tweets, you see a very different response from players. Now, it's all subjective. What I think is the best COD ever versus what you think, Brian, is going to be different. It's always been different. The play style that I like and the games that I like versus what you like is different. There's always that level of subjective nature. But there does seem to be a general consensus that this was not necessarily and again, $69, dude. We're not talking about a $39 DLC. We're talking about a $70 title. I can fill my car twice.
It should be
for
its own
$70.
Standalone.
I mean, seriously,
it should have the content of a standalone.
It should. I mean, it takes me about $37 to fill my gas tank. So 2 tanks of gas in my car was pretty much a month of driving if I'm not doing anything significant. That's what you're asking for. That's not an insignificant, especially in this economy. It's not an insignificant amount of money that you're asking for.
Well, I mean, and just look at the state. We've been talking week after week at the state of the video game industry.
Yeah, brutal.
People aren't spending money in video games like they used to, and that might be part of this decision of normally if the economy's good, they'll be like, all right, I'll put the money out. We'll see if it's good. Here, I think people are now apprehensive, saying, all right, maybe I'm going to budget now for video games. Maybe I'm making decisions of what I'm going to buy and not buy. Is this something that I'm willing to put money out for right now? And it sounds like a lot of people are saying no. You being one of them. And I think that's kind of new for the Call of Duty franchise. I don't think they're used to people saying, well, I might skip this one. Like, that doesn't happen very often.
Let's since we're kind of talking about the economy, the video game economy, we've got a couple of stories on that.
Well, okay, let's start here. Kotaku, one of the bastions of truth we sometimes reference here, they've been hit by what they call redundancies. But really,
Brian, no. Stop saying Brian, no.
I know.
No, Brian, no.
Well, and one thing I think that's just going to I know it's going to be really hard for you to accept is they're also shuttering Jezebel after 16 years.
Oh God! I mean, how am I going to do my show, Brian? This is now this is affecting my paycheck. How can I do my morning radio show without checking on Jezebel every morning to see what kind of nonsensical propaganda they're posting over there? God forbid.
I know, and so that's going to be that's going to make your job a little bit tougher. You're going to search a little bit harder. But yeah, they're closing that after 16 years. And then they said they found 23 redundancies across Geo Media, which, redundancies, is that now writers since AI is now writing most of these articles? I mean, what do they consider a redundancy?
So I don't remember. I don't remember. Last week we talked about, what was the company we talked about last week that found redundancies? It was specifically in the IT realm. Was it Ubisoft?
Embracer and Ubisoft. Ubisoft saw them in the VFX and IT teams. That's right. They had
Okay.
redundancies in the IT team and things like that. Yes.
I would not be surprised to see that those numbers out of the 23, not necessarily in IT, but like, hey, so you're the guy that does X, Y, and Z for Jezebel. Could you also do X, Y, and Z for Kotaku or some of the other outlets that they have? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised to see that's the case. And when you look at the brand, all the brands that Geo Media own, you're talking about Deadspin, Gizmodo, Jezebel, The Onion. I mean, these are all, I say popular publications. They're all known publications. You don't Christ almighty, God help you if you read Jezebel and Deadspin all day. Or Gizmodo, which actually used to be a pretty respectable tech blog. Gizmodo used to have great stuff on it back in the early 2010s. But I'm sure there's no question about it. When you own that many publications, there's a guy or gal at Kotaku that's doing the exact same thing over at these other companies, and you just ask that person to do it at both. No question about it.
Yeah. Yep. And we also did those. We reported on them, some of these companies switching to AI, and really what their listings were saying they needed were people that could pick out the art or the image art that's going to be on the front of the article.
Sure. And
then doing some proofreading and posting it. I mean, that's pretty much what it came down to of them actually doing. And I would expect that that's very heavily what they're doing at Kotaku and Deadspin and all these places. I probably cut a lot of staff just because they don't need as many writers. They're relying on AI to do some of these things.
Now, I want to read
a description and saying write the rest of the article.
From the memo to employees from the CEO. While Geo Media is a lean, nimble organization, which is another way to say we're in media. I deal with this in radio. You deal with it in newspapers. You deal with it in television. Media, traditional media, is not what it was even 10 or 15 years ago. So while Geo Media is a lean, nimble organization, Brian, we are not immune to the economic headwinds rattling our business. And that's it.
Yeah.
This whole concept, and without going on a diatribe, but I will, this whole concept of Bidenomics and, hey, your 401, the stock, hey, look at the stock market it's green. The Dow's been positive for 12 days. It's a new record. The economy's great. It's all a facade, right? Because the stock market is not the economy. This is the economy right here. You're seeing the economy. And this is for the last year, literally, probably 16 months. We've been talking about this week after week after week. And it's obvious. Yep. It's having a huge impact.
Well, and for instance, let's look at a company that seems somehow not to be affected by the economy. And that's Amazon. They are reducing the games division. You would say, well, what's the games division? That's that secret division that's been supposedly creating games that we've seen a few games come out of. New World has been one that has actually put out a game. There's a couple others that I haven't heard much about, but they're laying off 180 people from the games division, which is pretty big. And it says they confirm news as it has laid off the entirety of the Amazon-backed Twitch channel and Crown channel as well.
Damn.
So, all their Amazon game things that they're doing on Twitch. So an internal email from the VP of Amazon Games said, we've listened to our customers, and we know delivering free games every month is what they want most. So we are refining our Prime benefits to increase our focus there. With these changes in our business approach comes changes of our resourcing, resulting in elimination of just over 180 roles.
It's a lot.
So, yeah, that is pretty big. So they'll we'll see how that affects. I mean, sounds like they're trying to still maintain the whole Amazon Prime gaming, which is that section where you can go and claim skins. I go through every month or so and claim everything on there, even if I'm not really playing the game, just in case I do. And then all of a sudden there will be all these items that I can use or packs that I can use in the game. I enjoy that feature if you have an Amazon Prime account. but they're definitely having to restructure because they're getting hit. I bet you Twitch is really struggling. There's a lot of changes they've been making. They've got to figure out how to continue making money. They can't go for, they can't do all this stuff for free and not have a way of bringing income. I noticed when I came in and launched the Twitch channel, they now have me forced watching a minute pre-roll before the thing even shows up. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. That's what they're having to do to try to make sure they're making money because they're just hosting a bunch of servers. And if the prime talent isn't staying on Twitch, if the number of people that are donating money and subscribing to all these people aren't there, like they've got to figure out, okay, well, we've got to play longer ads so that we can make money. Back when people were giving tons of money to all the streamers and the streamers had exclusivity here, I'm sure they didn't really need to. But you know what? Just like when for Epic, Fortnite isn't bringing in as much money or Unreal isn't bringing they've got to shift and figure out how they continue making money to continue the product. And we're seeing that here. Exactly the same thing.
When you talk about donating to Twitch streamers using, they still called bits. I think that's what they're called. Using Twitch bits and doing the subs and all this other stuff. What is that, Brian? That's discretionary spending. And we've spent a lot of time talking about how discretionary spending for many folks is evaporating. There's no question about it's affecting them. And don't for one second think that these massive contracts that they have for these Twitch streamers are coming to roost. Because, I mean, some of what they were offering these streamers were ridiculous, Brian. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. And again, it was on the premise of, well, look at all these subscribers, look at all these views, look at all these donations. That's all changing. We deal in a whole world economy, and when you're getting pinched at the grocery store, I can only imagine what you're dealing with. You're feeding like 7,000 faces over there. When you're dealing with that, dude, it's brutal. I mean, Christ almighty, I live alone. I go to the grocery store and buy like 8 things and it's $39. I mean, it's terrible.
That's the thing is every time we go to the grocery store, it's usually at least $300.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And that's just getting the things that you need. And we go multiple times per month. And so, if you can imagine back in the day, $300 would feed your family for a month.
And you said back in the day. Go back 10 years.
10 years ago, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Back in the day, you go back and you could buy 4 times as much food for the money. And now, since it's costing us 4 times more for the same amount of food, we're now having to go 4 times a month at $300 a pop rather than once a month at $300 a pop. That is that discretionary income you're talking about. People, and then look at the cost of interest rates. Anybody purchasing a home, you're paying 4 times as much.
What do you know about
for
that,
your
Brian?
interest? I know exactly about that. I keep hoping that the election's going to change a lot of things, but it's crazy. The amount that people are having to pay because of how this country is being run is insane. And the crazy thing is people keep voting. You look at the election results of this recent election, people keep voting the same. If you want something different, you got to do something different. And it's like, obviously these people, are they happy with the current state of their economy? Are they happy with the current state of the cost of gas, the price of food, the cost of housing? I've read articles about how the cost of housing, there's only a certain small percentage of people that can afford to buy a house in today's economy. A very small percentage. Like it's our economy's in shambles, yet people vote the exact same way. You vote the same way when you don't want things to change. I don't know if people realize that.
What's the definition of insanity, Brian?
I mean, it's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And if you if you're expecting something to change, but you keep voting for the same person and the same policies, then you're insane or stupid. Maybe both.
I think a lot of I think it's a combination of both and a lot of the latter. And it's not just Amazon or Kotaku. Unity, which we've seen has made huge strides into the what market, Brian? The mobile game market. What funds the mobile game market? microtransactions,
discretionary
income. You know, I'm playing, and I don't think it's a Unity game. I hate to admit this. I've been playing, Brian. Okay, this is my therapy session. I've been playing a lot of Monopoly Go. Have you played Monopoly Go yet?
My wife plays Monopoly Go, or has played Monopoly Go. I haven't really played it.
I'm going to hit her up after the show. I've been playing a lot of Monopoly Go. Now, as you know well
share
about
some
me,
cards or whatever they are.
Yeah, we'll absolutely share some cards and spread around the wealth. There's nothing wrong with that. We'll have a nice conversation about it. Monopoly Go is it's a fully licensed Monopoly game. It is not built on Unity. I know that. But every time you open the app, it's like, and you know me, I don't do microtransactions. I don't. I never have. Yeah. I never will. I haven't spent a penny on this game. So, and I'm not tempted to. Like, I'm not, I love gambling, but I don't love spending. I don't do microtransactions. I'll dump $100 into a slot machine just to press the button over and over again. But I won't do it on microtransactions. But every time you open this app, 99 cents this, $1.99 that, $2.99 that, you get 1,000 dice and this amount of money. When you're strapped for cash, there's not a chance in hell, unless you're a serious addict, there's not a chance in hell you're doing that. It's just not happening. There's no way you're doing that.
Well, and there's a lot of people that all of a sudden it catches up with them, and then they realize, because before maybe they weren't paying attention when they weren't worrying about all these bills coming out of their checking account. You know, you throw them on there and you don't really worry about it. But then now, when all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've done too many transactions, I can't quite afford to pay my power bill, that becomes a problem. And that's when people say, all right, I'm not spending anymore. And then people just cut out all spending for those types of games. And I think that's where the point where people are hitting now.
And it's not only hurting microtransactions, it's hurting new game purchases. You talk about a Call of Duty. These streaming services, now they're not video games, but you know, Hulu and Disney Plus and Netflix and Spotify and all these things.
Well, and Disney Plus, I think, is merging with Hulu because of them not being able, because of the cost of running that whole service. I think that they're going to be here pretty soon announcing that they're going to be merging a Disney Plus Hulu, to where I think Disney Plus is really something underneath of Hulu.
I think there's already some sort of mix that you can get, like a Hulu plus Disney thing. But
I think they're getting rid of the Disney Plus by itself, and it's becoming the Hulu package.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all. All of these things add up month over month over month, and people just can't justify it. Especially,
well, and one thing
I was going to say, especially in, you know, who's the target for some of these things? A lot of younger people, right? There's very few 65-year-olds that are clamoring at the bit for the new Call of Duty, right? You've got a lot of folks in their late 20s, early 30s, getting their families started, all of those things. Times are tough, money's rough, all of these things. And it's like, I don't have it this month, Brian. I don't have, I used to spend let's say an insignificant, $25 a month. It's not a lot of money. Yeah. And if you spread out $25 worth of microtransactions in a game over a month, it's not a lot. It's a 99-cent purchase here. It's a $3.99 here. It's not a lot. Yeah. But when things are tough, it is a lot. $25 a month is a lot, or could be a lot of money. And you're seeing a lot of that being cut out. And it's just, we've seen free-to-play come to a rise. I remember being in, to age myself on the young side, I remember being in middle school when the iPhone came out. I know you were a lot older, Brian, but I was in middle school. I was hot stuff, baby. I had the iPhone 3GS. I was hot stuff. Every app used to cost 99 cents or $1.99. There was very few free apps on the App Store because that was the monetization model. Sell it for 99 cents, you're good to go. And we've seen that trend over the last 15 years transition from charge for the service ahead of time, give it for free, dangle the carrot, and entice them to purchase after the fact. And when times are good, which they've been generally, yes, you look at 2006, 7, 8, but iPhones and stuff really stuff wasn't super popular until after that. Things have been relatively good since then. And now we're looking like things are maybe trending not in the relatively good space, and it is going to completely upend all these models. It is not sustainable. You cannot offer a game for free, keep up servers for free, pay staff for free, and not make any money. You either need your whales, which are people that just invest thousands of dollars into the game every month, and those people just fund it all, or you need a bunch of small little ticky-tack transactions. You've got to have a mixture of both. And when you have just the whales or maybe less whales and not a lot of the ticky-tack 99 cents here or there, it's brutal.
Yep.
You can't continue. It's not feasible.
Well, and one thing, if you look at with Unity, their revenue is up 69% year over year or year on year. It's up to 544 million. But the problem is their net loss is still 125 million. Now that's compared to 250 million last year. So they've halved their net loss, but there's a loss. I mean, that's the thing is they've got to figure out how to. So that's why they've still reduced. They've announced layoffs, even though they've increased revenue and reduced losses. They're still operating at a loss. And so they said that the timing and full impact of these types of changes on our future results of operation, cash flow, or financial conditions are uncertain. For those reasons, we are currently unable to reasonably quantify the potential impacts through the fourth quarter of 2023. So, they're still worried, and they should be. They need to get to where they're operating at a profit, that they're bringing in money and not losing money year over year.
I'm highlighting this. Unable to reasonably quantify the potential impacts. Let me dumb that down. We don't know what the hell's going to happen with the economy. We have no freaking clue what's coming in the future. And we are
because
preparing.
Nothing's changing.
No,
President's still the same president. The decisions are still the same decisions through the end of the year. And so they're not expecting anything to get better until changes happen, right? I mean, that's probably what it comes down to. They know that there's not going to be much change in the inflation other than it possibly getting worse. All these things are not looking to be trending in any positive direction. So they're still buckling down because I think almost all these places don't think we're on the verge of it getting better. I think they still think we're dangling over the cliff and it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So they're preparing for that.
I think you're probably right. Right.
I just want to list off some other, studio closures.
Sure.
Samurai Punk is closing down. Frontier is laying off unknown number of staff in an organizational review is what they're calling it. Xperia's Game Solutions staff are, they're pursuing unionization because, they're worried about their jobs. Of course, running to a union is going to solve everything.
Yeah,
well, with
we know
money
how well
companies not making money, what's that going to solve?
Yeah, we know how well that works. You know what you should do, Brian? The industry you work in is dealing with some economic headwinds. You know what a great idea is? Unionize, ask for a 70% raise, and ask to work 4 days a week.
Work 3 days a week.
That is
three.
We've
the
seen
new thing
that
is 3 days a week.
3 days a week. Excuse me. Yes. So I want to be compensated 70% more for my 40-hour work week. For a 26-hour work week, I want to be compensated for that same amount of time at 70% the rate and work only 3 days a week. We see that with the United Auto Workers Union, and that hasn't worked at all. They came to a pretty reasonable deal, 25% increase, still a 5-day work week, additions to the pension benefits, addition to medical, additional PTO, and it's not enough for the UAW workers because they want to work 4 days a week, get a 45% pay increase, which is what they originally wanted, and now they're denying this contract that the union fought for. This whole thing is about to come crumbling down like a house of cards. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, another one is Media Molecule. They make Little Big Planet and a game called Dreams.
Okay. Both very popular
studios
games.
for that. Mm-hmm. And they are laying off 15 to 20% of their staff, which is pretty big. Cryptic Studios is having layoffs there. Let me see. I didn't see the exact amount. They just confirmed personnel changes, and so they're not. I don't think they're giving an exact number. So maybe we'll get. And that's Embracer Group owned. Another one of those. Motorsport Games is laying off up to 38 employees. 100 Thieves is a studio. They're cutting 20% of their workforce.
These are
Digital
huge
Extremes,
numbers, dude. These are
Yes.
20% of your workforce. That's a lot.
In Digital Extremes, they're doing 30 employees. They're letting go at that studio. So,
and they're closing their publishing division
across. Yeah, and so they're closing the publishing division, just trying to figure out how in the world
just doing development now.
Are we going to stay afloat?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of the state of this week when it comes to the video game industry, and it's a repeat of it's going the same direction. Yeah, I mean, you keep people. I know people think that this is just a thing that's happening to happen for a short period of time. No, this has been week after week. We have announced and not repeating the same ones. These are new studios, new sets of layoffs, new closing downs. I mean, all of this is just, I feel like if we didn't mention it, people wouldn't notice how bad it is. Not that it's getting, how bad it is. Like, we're pointing out, look at these problems. It's the economy. Was it Bill Clinton who said it's the economy, stupid, or something like that? This maybe before your time. But it's the economy, stupid. You want to know what's wrong in the video game industry? It's the economy, stupid. Really? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
I'd like to read you, Brian.
And poor choices by some companies.
I'd like to read you a comment from the Kotaku article about the 180 employees laid off from Amazon.
Okay,
from Fiery Rebirth. Reminder that big game companies don't care about you as a worker/labor of any kind unless you're part of the executive class, drinking $500 wine amongst your fellow shills. If you have the, quote, dream of moving up in the world as a low-class worker when it's been expressed time and time again that connections are valued more than merit, let those normalized layoffs serve as evidence. You're cattle, nothing more, Brian. You're there to be used up. The executives profiting from your labor for pennies in return, then throw away. Hate the system? Unionize. The increased rate of layoffs is an expression of how much powerful corporations control society, as well as their disdain towards the working class, only getting more aggressive with their stances since the pandemic's peak.
Yeah, really.
There's your average Kotaku reader.
Yeah, that's why they're having to shut down a bunch of things, I'm sure.
Jesus.
I'm not an anti-economy guy and anti, free market and all this. And the things that these people say is, first of all, when the economy's good, employees tend to be treated well. And I don't know if people have noticed, but the cycle of usually when the economy is good and when it's bad ties to the election cycle. The economy was really bad in a couple of recent presidents, and they were Democrats. I mean, just being straight up with you, and I don't know if people have realized that when you spend tons of money in the government and you give away tons of money to foreign countries or to companies or just, however they're spending this money, it causes the value of the dollar to decrease because our government prints their money. They don't have it. It's not based on the gold standard. It's not based on anything being produced or created, which is what capitalism is supposed to be. Money is supposed to be based on something that was created or generated or gold or something. And when you get rid of that, then all of a sudden you are making the value of the dollar decrease. And that's where we're at. The trillions of dollars given to Afghanistan or wasted in Afghanistan and the given to wars, in Europe, and just all of these things are causing our value of our dollar to become less. And that's where we're at right now. The best way that we could save our economy is to spend less money. If the government quit printing money and quit giving away money and started figuring out ways to make the value of the dollar come back, when you go to the store and buy food, it would be cheaper. If we did our own, just like Trump did, if we produced all our own oil and all our own fuel in this country, because that's what he did for us, then the cost of shipping and and generating food and services goes down. Like, this is basic 101, but it's like the top economists in our country in the political left can't figure out this basic concept. That's why all these companies are tanking. People don't, the value of the dollar has dropped so much that people can't afford to have extra money because they have to spend the 4 times much on fuel, on food, on, you name it, cost of living. That's it. It's the economy, stupid. That's why I say that. It comes down to that. And if you want that to be different, vote for somebody that's going to do something different with the economy. Quit voting for the same person if you don't like what the state of the economy is. I don't get it. It baffles me.
Yeah.
So,
you're right.
We're not going to have great video games until this changes, by the way. You think these studios are investing heavily in new upcoming AAA titles at the moment?
No.
No, absolutely not. And so if you claim you like video games, then you should be wanting to make a big difference in this and make the economy something where the studios can start hiring on and people can have money to spend on video games. Because these are going to continue to dwindle to where for a long period of time, for maybe years, we won't have big AAA studios or new AAA studios coming in and making big titles.
Yeah,
because they're having to cut their staff and cut their outgoing. So it's just kind of sad. It's sad where we're at in the economy and with this industry. I mean, it's trashed at the moment.
Not in good shape, my friend. Not in good shape.
So let's talk a minute about Epic, because
what's going on?
First of all, there's this court case that's been happening. One of the interesting things that
has there been a lengthy legal court battle going on between Epic and somebody else, Brian? I don't ever remember hearing about this.
Yeah, this is Epic and Google. We heard a lot about the Epic and Apple, but this one's been kind of taking a while to ramp up.
Sure.
And so we're starting to see, just like in the Apple versus Epic, we saw things come out of the court documents. Google had offered Epic $147 million to have Fortnite be released on the Google Play Store. In 2018, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney told GameIndustry.biz that Fortnite would not be released on Google Play as the 30% store tax is a high cost. Instead, the company planned to release Fortnite Installer, which they did, and all that stuff that happened. But Google offered them $147 million to bring it onto their Play Store. And that's something that, maybe even with a 30%, they didn't feel like that was worth it.
Let me jump in.
Not sure 100% why.
Say what you want about Tim Sweeney. This guy's consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say what you want about him. You can say what you want about Epic as a company. This guy believes in something, and he believes in it. You had to Google off him nearly $150 million to put his game on the Google Play Store. And he said, no, the Google tax is too high, the same way that the Apple tax is too high. I'm not going to do it. This guy's, you got to give him credit, Brian. He's consistent in what he says. He means what he says, and he says what he means.
Yep. Well, and this is where they estimated that Google's estimate that Fortnite absence from the Play Store could result in between 130 million and 250 million direct revenue loss for the marketplace.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So they were counting on the low end of that. They were like, we know we're guaranteed to lose 130 million on this. Let's offer them 147 million to keep it in. and then we banked the rest. But they didn't, and they kept it off of there, and I think they said there was a potential impact of a 550 million and 3.6 billion in revenue loss. Is what they said across the whole thing. But Tim Sweeney is consistent. He's kind of set a moral high ground for him, where they're not, you think it's a moral high ground. He says, I don't want to pay 30% fees. And that's what this is really about. It's not about making a backroom deal to make sure that they're still profitable. He doesn't want to do the huge fees on transactions because that can affect different transaction rates across different countries.
Sure.
It causes a lot of confusion and makes it to where they have to mark everything up a high certain amount just to make sure it's profitable. And that's not what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So.
And he's proven that no matter who it is, Google or Apple, he's going to stand by that.
Yep. And another thing that came out of the court documents is that PC store, the Epic Games Store, is still not profitable, is what they're saying. So this is something that I know that they didn't expect it to be. They're probably also looking at the state of the economy. Look at all these other places. If they can last through this economy, then I bet you it'll grow and become profitable once there's a recovery in the economy. They said that growth is still the company's main goal, but they're not profitable yet. And so the Tim Sweeney tweeted that losing more than $300 million on the game store was all part of the plan. This is back in 2021. That is true. They're trying to get a foothold and compete with Steam, compete with, whatever markets are out there that might compete with them. But I think that if they can last through this economy and continue maintaining having a store, that they will be profitable. Because I think spending is probably down across the, even on Steam. If you went and looked at how much they're actually bringing in, I bet you they're bringing in quite a bit less.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be less as well, and so they know if right now we're in the less, later it'll be more. So yeah. I think that's where they're kind of hoping for.
All right. Well, I've got a heart out here, Brian. Got to cut it a little bit short this evening, so apologies for that. But where can folks find you online?
Well, if you want to find me on X, you can go to @BoiseComputer. Of course, if you go to @Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, or Truth Social. Also, if you want to go to my blog, you can go to biteofTech.com or go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, and just go to the upper right-hand side and join our server on Discord. And that's the perfect place if you want to get a hold of Nick or I, or maybe you want to go and submit some show news links if there's a topic that you think we should be covering or maybe something you're adding to the discussion. Go throw a link in there and we'll review that before the live show. We also have 11 ARC servers running, so you're more than welcome to jump on one of those or to jump into our politics chat. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, or, of course, watch it after the fact on Rumble, or listen to it after the fact on all the different podcast platforms we have at the lower right. There's a lot of different ways to listen to the show. If you are listening, that means that the particular episode show notes are up and ready for that particular episode, and there's a video and audio player built into that page where you can just watch it or listen to it there while opening up links and checking out all the different topics and source material that we use while doing the live show. If you want to support the show, you can do that through the option up top in the menu or go to infectionpodcast.com/support.
Absolutely. You can do that. Brian, thank you very much. As always, my friend, greatly appreciated. We will chat with you next week.
See you later.
Alrighty, folks, you can check me out on X, formerly known as Twitter, which for whatever reason people still feel the need to say, @Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my day job. It's the Wilmington's Morning News Podcast. You can find it in all your favorite podcast apps or go to nickcraig.com for the details on that. If you missed any portion of today's show, as Brian mentioned, you can head on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.